Today we're going to look at a way of blending together major and minor sounds, specifically how we can switch between major scales and minor scales to create solos and melodies. This is a popular topic in guitar education, and I've done lessons on this in the past, but today we're going to look at this from a slightly different angle. We're going to look at the harmony that stems from these two scales and how we can use this harmony for composition and songwriting, as well as a powerful tool for soloing and improvising. Let's get into it. So today we're going to look at two different topics, diatonic harmony and then borrowed minor harmony. Now, diatonic harmony is the family of chords built from the major scale in a key. So for instance, if we look at the key of C major and we look at the C major scale, we can put chords to each one of those notes and we get this family of chords. C major, D minor, E minor, F major, G major, A minor, B diminished, and then back to C major. Now, each one of these chords is constructed using notes from the C major scale, so we can use that scale to create melodies over these chords. Now, borrowed minor harmony is where we use chords from the parallel minor key. So in this case, the parallel minor key of C major is C minor. So we have to know the chords that fit within the key of C minor. And the easiest way to do this is to find the relative major key. And on guitar, this is very simple. All we have to do is take our C minor chord and then move up a minor third and play our major chord. So from C, we go up 1, 2, 3 half steps, and we have an E flat major chord. So E flat major and C minor share the same notes. An E flat major scale shares the exact same notes as a C natural minor scale. So now we can use the same interval spacing and chord qualities we used for C major to play our diatonic family of chords for E flat major. And we get E flat major, F minor, G minor, A flat major, B flat major, C minor, D diminished, and back to E flat major. So if you're new to this concept, it may be helpful to write out these chord families on a sheet of paper so you can see them notated out in front of you, right? Here's our C major diatonic family of chords, and then below we have our C minor or E flat major diatonic family of chords. And this allows you to just kind of visually see what all the chords that you're working with. So now I'm going to do a little exercise that I've come up with where we're going to hear what these chords sound like in context. So what I'm going to do is a basic C major chord progression where I'm just going to go back and forth between a C major chord and then the 4-chord F major. But in between each time, I'm going to play one of these borrowed chords from the parallel minor key. So we'll start with E flat and then go up to F minor, G minor, A flat, B flat, so on and so forth. But this way you can kind of hear the effect that these borrowed chords have when used in the context of a C major chord progression. So for this, all we're going to be doing is going from C major to F major, but in between each time we're going to go through our C minor borrowed chords. So I'm going to start with C major, E flat major, then F major, and then back to C major. And you can hear this has a really classic sound. You've probably heard this type of chord progression in a ton of songs before. Right, super common chord progression, but that is an example of using a borrowed minor chord. So the next chord we have is our F minor chord. This is going to be a slightly less common example, but equally cool. We're going to go from C major to F minor, then up to F major, and then back to C. So a really cool, clever way of adding a little minor flavor in there. Next up, we have our G minor chord. This is a really cool one, really, not super common as the E flat, but equally cool. So we're going to go C major, G minor, to F, back to C major. So. Right, so a really cool sound. Next up, we have our A flat major. This is a really cool one and slightly less common, but I like this one a lot. We're going to go C major, A flat major, F major, and back to C. Next up, we have another really common one that you've probably heard in a million songs. This is B flat major. So we're going to go from C down to B flat major and then F. Right, so really common one. It's in a ton of songs. All right, so next up we have another kind of unusual one. This is our C minor. So we're going to go from C major straight to the parallel minor chord, C minor, and then to F. So this one is pretty unique. And finally, we have our D diminished. This is another fairly unusual one. So we're going to go C major, then up to, I'm going to play a D minor 7 flat 5, which is just the 7th chord version of this D diminished triad, and then F. You could also play straight triad, which could sound cool when you start trying out different inversions. So the whole point of this kind of exercise is to just see all the different options and have like a really complete kind of full picture of what's going on with the harmony here. This is like sort of a chord progression writing device that you can use, and by writing out all the chords and having them in front of you, it kind of eliminates a lot of the guesswork when you're trying to write a chord progression, and you're trying to figure out, well, what chord options do I have? When you have them all written out in front of you, you can cycle through them like that, like I just did, and hear what they sound like in the context of your chord progression. Now, from a soloing and improvising standpoint, what's great about chord progressions like this is you can play really meaningful, nice melodies by just switching between the major scale over the chords that fit within the major key, and then the minor scale with chords that fit over the minor key. And you can simplify things by just playing pentatonic scales. And what we're going to do is just look at a couple of pentatonic scale patterns in two positions. So I'm going to start out by playing this C major pentatonic scale, starting on the 3rd fret of the A string. And then I'm going to connect that together with this C major pentatonic scale, starting on the 8th fret of the low E string. Right, and you can start connecting these things together in kind of a diagonal fashion. Right, there's a million ways to play these notes all over the fretboard. But so just sticking kind of in that general area of the fretboard, we'll use that for our major stuff. And, you know, I may incorporate some notes from the C major scale, the full scale. You know, it's good to know all that stuff, and you can kind of work through those patterns at your own pace. This is not really a lesson diving into, you know, scale patterns all over the fretboard, but more how we can use this stuff. But once we know these major scales, we have to also know the minor scales, the C minor scales in the same spot, because the whole idea is to be able to kind of seamlessly weave our lines over these chords and create melodies that fit the chords, right? So our C minor pentatonic scales are, you know, in the same positions. We have that C minor pentatonic scale, and then we have this one up here. So the whole idea is we're going to try to weave together lines that switch between these two scales, the minor scale and the major scale, to fit over the different chords we're playing over. So we need to know and have these scales under our fingers. So as we're playing over a C major chord, we can play C major sounds. And then as we go to one of these borrowed chords, like the E flat major, we can switch to the minor sound. And then back to the major. So now I'm going to do some solo examples over a little backing track. I've just got a drum groove going and some chords looped. This first example, we're going to use that really common, very simple chord progression going from C major up to E flat major, and then to F major, and then back to C. And I'm just going to improvise a few times over the chord progression using some of this basic C major and C major pentatonic information, and then switching to that minor sound when that E flat major chord comes. So I'm not really overthinking this stuff. Obviously, playing over changes, and I've talked about this a ton on my channel, but you can get into chord tones and arpeggios, and you can get much deeper inside the chords. But the whole idea with this is it's kind of a early intermediate kind of soloing concept where you don't have to get too deep into the chords. You can just start having fun with some basic pentatonic scale information that you may already have under your fingers, and start using your ear to develop ideas and flesh out phrases. Let's do another solo example. Now we're going to do another really common one, the C major down to B flat major and then to F major. And you'll notice how the different chords sort of dictate maybe going in some different directions with some of the lines. As you experiment with this stuff on your own, you'll notice certain notes out of these scales maybe stand out as not sounding as great over certain chords, and certain notes do sound really good. And a lot of that usually is because the notes that sound really good have some relationship to the chord you're playing over. But again, this is all about just sort of thinking about the harmony in a slightly deeper way and then experimenting on your own. So I'm going to do one more solo example. I'm going to play a little bit longer and just kind of play us out on this one. This chord progression is going to go from C major down to that A flat major, which is a sound I really like a lot, and then go down to F, and we'll hang on F for a couple of bars. But again, I encourage you guys to experiment with this on your own. This is the kind of thing that you don't have to have the whole fretboard mapped out. You don't have to have a really deep, complete knowledge of music theory to start having fun with this stuff. This is a concept that really works for everybody at any playing level that you're at. But, if you've got a few pentatonic shapes or a few major or minor scale shapes under your hands, and you can wrap your head around this harmonic concept, sit down with it, write out the chords, and sort of look at them, and then write some chord progressions of your own. And the great thing about this is experimenting with this, you'll start to discover some really common harmonic movements and chord progression moves that turn up in a ton of songs, like some of these chord progressions we're playing today. And so you'll start to recognize this stuff in music that you're playing over. You may be playing over songs or working on tunes already that have this kind of borrowed harmony. And so it just gives you another tool in your toolbox to, conceptually think about when you're trying to play solos. Maybe you haven't thought about switching between major and minor. And this will hopefully shine some light on that. So I'm going to play this one last solo. Until next time, happy practicing and take care.